Hello and welcome everyone. Now let us start with the second chapter in your Class 12 Business Studies paper, Principles of Management. In today's lecture, we will be talking about the concept and the nature of principles of management. A managerial principle is a broad and general guideline for decision making and behavior. So, principle is anything that is advisory in nature. It helps you in deciding what type of action that you should take, particularly when you are in a dilemma. Now, the first thing we will do is understand what is a principle. We will see some life principles, and then we will understand what is or how could a business principle look like. So the first example I can give is we just saw the concept. Principles are general guidelines that drive action and help in decision making. Now let us see some examples of general principles. Speak the truth, respect the elders, keep your premises clean. You may also see that principles generally orient towards driving you in a positive direction. If you follow certain principles, you will get some good benefit. If you ignore the principles, you may have a risk of getting bad result in certain things. Now, what could be an example of a business principle? Treat your customers well. Now, before we understand what is the nature of business principles or management principles, we will see a quick differentiation between what are principles and what are techniques. Principles are general guidelines. It's a simple, plain advice. But techniques are something that tell you exactly what step-by-step things that you should do. Do this first, do this second, and do this last. We can see this in example. Treat your customers well. This is a principle. It does not exactly tell you what to do. But how could you apply this principle in the form of techniques? Okay. When your customer enters your premises, smile at them. Say welcome. Say good morning, good afternoon. Offer them a beverage. Offer them some snacks. When you speak business terms with them, always look in their eyes. Always listen to them properly. Make them feel that they are listened to. Don't finish their sentences. When you finish the business deal, shake hands with them. All these things are techniques. So techniques are something that is a procedure, also procedural in nature. Step by step you can write them so that you can follow very easily. But principles are general guidelines. I will show you the place where in your study material the difference between techniques and principles are given. Techniques are procedures or methods which involve a series of steps to be taken to accomplish desired goals. You can also have it this way. Techniques are principles in action. Okay. Now, I have highlighted these four places in the study material because you can see the same definition being repeated or being emphasized again and again in the first two pages. Principles are guidelines to take decisions or actions. Principles are basic truths or guidelines for behavior. Principles are guidelines to action. So they have repeatedly emphasized this particular point in order for you to understand clearly what a principle is. Now let's get into the nature of principles in detail. Now I'm going to explain the nature and characteristics of a principle by using this same principle, management principle, that I gave as an early example. So the first thing is, principles are universally applicable. It is similar to what we saw in the previous chapter, management as a science. Science has a universal applicability. The same way, some management principles also have universal applicability. We'll see this now. Treat your customers well. Let's say you are running a business. It doesn't matter whether you are an American. It doesn't matter whether you are an Asian. It doesn't matter whether you are a European or Australian. No matter where you run business, you need to treat your customers well, isn't it? So this type of principle is universally applicable. The second point is, principles are general guidelines. I just now explained the difference between principles and techniques. Principles are general guidelines. Techniques are the specific action steps. Treat your customers well applies to every business. But your company has a peculiar problem. Your company's customers are little weird. Principles will not help. In that situation, only techniques will help. Okay, next next nature is formed by practice and experimentation. For example, historically, I will just give you new principle just to explain this point, drive this point. Never leave your tribe or group. Thousands of years ago, there must be some human who would have decided to leave their group and decided to live solo. Humans were at a big risk of being hunted down by predatory animals. So what would have happened? There must be few humans who left their tribe and gone solo, must have been easily hunted down by a wild animal. Then humans learnt the lesson. Okay, if we stay as a group, we have higher chances of survival. If we leave the group and go solo, we have high risk of being dead within the next 2 weeks. Isn't it? So this is something, a principle. That's why we say that never ignore your social group. Never. This is something that even applies to us even in modern days, right? We always crave for community. We always crave for social bonding, isn't it? So this is again a principle, never leave your tribe or never leave your social connections. This has been formed by repeat practice and experimentation. Now let's go to the next nature, which is principles are flexible. Scientific principles are rigid. Those principles cannot be molded, cannot be used according to this particular situation. For example, a scientific principle, one of the examples is gravity. Gravity works everywhere on the planet at the same force. The force of gravity is what? 9.8 meter per second squared, isn't it? So it is 9.81 in Australia, it is 9.81 in Europe and everywhere on the planet. So that is scientific principle because it has absolute rigidity to it. You cannot make it flexible. But management principle can be used flexible. Again, treat your customers well. This is a general guideline. But can this be applied in every situation to every business? May not be possible. The degree of application of treating a customer well depends on business to business. Some companies will have extraordinary cash reserves with them. They have deep pockets and they can spend more money. So they can afford to give a beverage. They can afford to give snacks to any customer who walk in. Or they can give deep discount to any customer, to every customer almost. But some businesses might not be so cash rich. So what they can maximum do is just smile, greet them properly, give them a good customer support, but they may not be able to give greater perks. So that's why it is flexible. Principle is the same, but the application of principle depends on business to business. In your study material, the example that they have given is for this nature flexibility. Degree of concentration of authority or its dispersal will depend on situation and circumstances of each enterprise. So I will also explain this. What is degree of concentration of authority? Some companies, the whole power, the whole control will be in the hands of the board of directors, the managing director, executive directors. So that is extremely centralized power. The power is in few hands. That will work for some enterprises. Then there are many companies, many businesses that are highly decentralized, which means the top management will also not have too many powers. They will have power in very key, most important, top secret aspects of the company, but they will let go of many things. They outsource their control to the lower level managers. I have seen companies where the managing director will literally sign each and every check, which means it was an extremely centralized company. Also, it was a relatively small company, say 50 to 100 crore turnover company. In that company, the managing director had the time because he did not want to lose the control. He made sure that he literally will come to 3 days in a week to the finance department, take all the checks, he will reconcile every payment to be made, and he will sign in each and every check. Now, this is not the case in every company. Some companies, when they grow up to a certain level, the board of directors will outsource this power to the CFO, will outsource this power to the GM Finance. So GM Finance will sign all the small value checks. So this is decentralization. And board of directors will sign only the key aspects. They will have some limits. If the check is above 5 crores, if the check is above 10 crores, then board of directors will have to sign it. But let's just say it's a normal payment that you have to make to your creditor. Say it's a 50,000 rupee check, or if it's a 1 lakh rupee check, then the board of directors will not waste their time in signing that check. So that time they will just outsource that job to the people at the lower level. So this is decentralization. Now, how much you outsource the control to the others and how much you keep it within yourself, it's a matter of each company's personal decision. Then the next nature is mainly behavioral, which just saw principles are not just theoretical statements or feel-good statements. Principles are general guidelines, but what do they guide you into? They guide you into action. So again, treat your customers well. Everything is targeting you into make some action. Again, I will give you some example in your study material. We will see the principles of Toyota. So this is given in the very first page of your chapter. If you see this, honor the language and spirit, respect the culture, provide clean and safe products, create and develop advanced technologies, foster a corporate culture. You see, each and every principle is directing the employees to do some behavior. Everything is a verb. Can you see? Pursue, foster, create, provide, respect, honor, work. Everything is a verb. So it is always targeting you into an action. So it is behavioral in nature. The next thing is principles reflect a cause and effect relationship. Principles will always have an action element and a consequence element to it. Let me give you some example. Treat your customers well. Back to our old example. Let's do some experiment. For 1 month, don't treat your customers well. Don't welcome them. Don't offer them anything. Don't shake hands. Don't smile at them. Make sure that you don't treat them well. Then see how much sales you are making in that month. Then go to the second month. In the second month, treat your customers well, which means you just carry out every action step which we just discussed earlier. Then you see how much sales you get. So if you do this experiment and compare the sales between both the months, you will be able to see the month that you did not treat your customers well, you made very less sales. Cause, disrespect your customers. Effect, low sales. The second month, treat your customers well. Cause, respect your customers. Effect, more sales. So this is how principles will reflect every cause and effect relationship in a business. And lastly, contingent. This is similar to the flexible aspect of the nature of principles. Let me give you another example. The same treat your customers well will not apply in every situation. Let's say you are flying in an airplane. The flight attendant will always smile at you, welcome you when you step into the airplane, will give you a glass of water, will serve you with food, beverage and everything. But the same flight attendants will behave differently during the times of takeoff and landing. What do they always insist? They always insist that you put your seat belts and then you don't open the tray table and and they will also tell you to open the windows. So these three things, and also they will ask you to don't push back your seat during takeoff and landing. They will make sure that each and every passenger adheres to these four things while they are flying. And what happens if a passenger forgets to do any of these four things? The flight attendant gets a little strict and enforces them to do it. What if the customer still doesn't respect it? They will be added to the no-fly list. The next time you will not be even able to travel in that particular airline because you will be given demerit points and you cannot get into it. This is purely for the safety of all other passengers and safety of the overall aircraft. So treat your customers well, give them hospitality, make them feel good during the mid-flight. But during takeoff and during landing, treat your customers with a little bit of strictness because at that time, safety is more important than hospitality. So again, principles are also contingent. It varies according to situation and situation. In today's lecture, we will talk about Taylor's scientific management. To understand Taylor's scientific management, we need to classify it into two types. One is Taylor's scientific principles, and then the other is Taylor's scientific techniques. In today's class, we will talk about principles. In the next class, we will talk about the techniques of Taylor's scientific management. So first, before we get into the principles, we need to understand the concept of mass production. What is meant by mass production, which is I have also highlighted assembly line here. Previously, when they had to manufacture a car or heavy equipment, 3 to 5 people will be working in a factory, in a small sized garage type factory, and all of them will be focused on making one car at a time. Now, what is the problem with this? What is wrong with this? Because first thing, it will take a lot of time to manufacture a car. Maybe it will take 2 times to make a full car. And also, all the people who worked in making the car should be so educated. They should be well versed with the mechanics of whatever that happens in making a car. But what happens when you do a mass production? What happens when the cars were made by assembly line? So if you can see, this is an example of an assembly line. You can see at the same time multiple cars are made. So what they did in assembly line, they noted down all the tiny steps that are considered in order to make a car, and then they segregated it from one person to the other, and then they made it like a running assembly line. So at the same time, multiple cars will be, the process of making multiple cars will be started at the same time, and lots of people will be employed in that assembly line. And you would have already seen probably some videos of assembly line. The employees are responsible for making only 2 to 3 actions. Some people will be just responsible for affixing the door. Some people will be just responsible for tightening the bolts and everything. You get the idea. So this means that nobody needs to be expert in making car or anything, because nobody needs to do the entire process from end to end. So they just need to be doing 2 to 3 actions at a time. So they will be, it is easy to train them as well. So that's the advantage of mass production. Now, Taylor had done a big contribution in converting the solo production into mass production in the United States, and from there it spread across the world. Taylor's lifetime was the mid 1800s. So today AI is a big revolution that we see, isn't it? 200 years ago, going from solo production into mass production was the hot thing at that time. So you have to always think about, now today if you see mass production or assembly line, it might look very obvious for you. But 200 years ago, this was like a big revolution. So on that background, let's get into Taylor's scientific principles. So 4 principles are there: science, not rule of thumb; harmony, not discard; cooperation, not individualism; and development of each person to their fullest ability. Okay, so the first point is science, not rule of thumb. What is it? Taylor wanted to do everything scientifically. He wanted to have a proper beginning of a process and an official end of the process, and he also wanted to note down everything that goes from beginning to the end, along with what all the steps that it takes, and also the time that it takes to perform each and every step. So Taylor had the idea of, there is a proper and scientific way to do everything. For example, let's say I am a carpenter and I do not follow any scientific principles in my production. You wanted a chair and you come and place an order for a chair. So I ask for the requirement and dimensions and everything, and then you ask me when the chair will be ready. I do not have any scientific idea on how I am going to produce this, right? How I am going to make this chair, right? So I will give you, just come back after 3 days. So that is rule of thumb. I don't know when I am exactly going to finish. I don't know when I am going to cut the wood, and I don't know when I am going to make it into a chair. I don't know when I am going to apply the varnish, and I don't know how long it is going to dry. So I actually don't know anything about making a chair accurately. I just know how to make it. So that is Why? I just said, okay, come back after 3 days. So it's an estimation. But had I applied Taylor's scientific principles, I would have started documenting the process, and then I will say, okay, it will take exactly half an hour for me to cut, maybe half a day for me to fit it into a chair, and then it will take 1 hour to polish it, and then it will take 1 day to dry. So exactly it will take 48 hours, and I will say come back after 2 days. It will be ready in 2 days instead of 3 days. Now this is how scientific management works. Now I have given an example here, McDonald's time management for order processing. They have done this in McDonald's outlets. They know exactly, even to the last second, how long it will take to get an order processed. From the time the order is heard from the customer and it will be communicated to the kitchen, till the time it will be given to the hands of the buyer. They know exactly how long it should take. Even inside the kitchen, they keep everything in perfect place so that it takes the shortest time to pick the stuffing, to pick the burger, to fry and everything, and roll it into a wrap, and then give it to the delivery counter. They measure everything to the last second. So that's the example that I wanted to give. You can Google this later, or you can YouTube about this, how exactly order processing works inside McDonald's. You will even know everything came from this Taylor's work only. Okay, now the second point is harmony, not discord. So, and the third point is cooperation, not individualism. I want to cover these two together because they are similar things. Back in the day, there used to be a huge amount of dispute. Even today, the dispute between management and the workers exists, but back in the day, it used to exist even to a larger extent. Now, Taylor believed that if management and workers don't go with each other, it is going to create a lot of inefficient processes. It is going to waste a lot of time. It is going to waste a lot of resources. Nobody is going to win in that way. So he believed that workers and the management should go hand in hand together to create a good productive output. And so what should be done? What are the solution Taylor proposed to achieve this objective? He said that if management makes good profits, management should share that profit generously with the workers so that they feel well remunerated. At the same time, workers should also come to the factory on time, should not waste their time idling and chit-chatting, and not take unnecessary leave, and try to give their best output every day for the pay that they receive. That way, both management and workers can gain. So that is harmony and not discord. Now, what is about cooperation and individualism? Cooperation and individualism talks about, again, management should not think that they are the only one, that they are better. At the same time, workers also should not think that they are the only thing that they are better. Again, both should work in a cooperative manner. More importantly, management should adopt this paternalistic style. What is this paternalistic style? Which means management generally has more money and more power in society, right? Workers are the ones who are kind of financially not so rich. So what management should do, they should act like a father figure and should take care of the employees. They should give them sometimes salary advance, they should give them some loan, they should give some insurance. A lot of staff welfare mechanisms are there, and management should be willing to do that to the employees. Today, in many companies in India, there are lots of staff welfare schemes that you can see both in manufacturing companies and in service sector companies. So, and also the other point Taylor insists is that employees should be present while management takes any decision. So, management should not do anything in isolation. They should bring employees also into a decision making process, so they should feel that they are also participating in the collective growth, that they are not left out. And the example that I want to give in India's context is Tata's staff welfare program. So I had the opportunity to go to Jamshedpur like 15 years ago for my during my articleship for an audit. So there I saw how Tata Nagar exactly looks, where it's like a quarters of all the Tata employees. I could visibly see the difference between the roads inside Tata Nagar and roads outside Tata Nagar in the normal Jamshedpur area, and how water and electricity used to be inside Tata Nagar. So it's like a separate district inside the larger district. I want to say that because to that extent, Tata, entire Tata group takes care of their employees very well. So that's the example. You can also Google about this later. The last point in Taylor's scientific principles is development of each person to his or her greatest efficiency and prosperity. The connecting point to this concept is what we saw in the first chapter in objectives of management, and third objective was personal objectives, right? So management should not just focus on profits, the company's profit or company's growth. Management should also focus on whether employees are growing in their career or not. Are they learning? Are they growing in their career? Are they building their skills? So in modern day context, a lot of companies invest in educational programs on their employees. They encourage the employees to go and learn some software programs, go and learn service sector companies ask employees these days to go and learn data science, and they will sponsor the course. Or nowadays companies are asking employees to go and learn AI, so that the employees, if they become skilled in AI, they will use that learning into companies work, and that thereby they can do the work much faster. Ultimately it will also benefit the company also. Both the parties get the benefit here, because employee can put in his or her resume that they have learned that skill, and the company also gets benefited because employee can ultimately apply that skill to the company's process, thereby things get done faster. Let's talk about functional foremanship. We are currently in Taylor's scientific management. In the previous class, we saw Taylor's scientific principles. In today's class and in the next classes, we will see Taylor's scientific techniques. On that, first thing is functional foremanship. Okay, to understand functional foremanship, we need to first understand the concept of division of work. Tomorrow, when you grow up and get into a job environment, you will be hearing this term a lot, division of work. So in the modern day workplace management, the employers prioritize this first, which is the division of work. What does it say? It says that don't entrust more than 2 to 3 roles to a single person. Divide the work so that one role or one activity will be done by only one person. So you can see this in restaurant, right? The waiter is a different person, the receptionist is a different person, and the person who gives you the bill and collects the cash will be a different person. So this is division of work. Taylor wanted to do this inside factory. He wanted to bring the concept of division of work inside the factory floor itself. So he thought the person who can run the factory at the most efficient and effective manner is called foreman. Means he is before everybody. So he is like the front runner in a factory. And to be able to run a factory in a very, very effective manner, Taylor believed that foreman should have 8 qualities, or he should be able to do 8 functions. But because of this concept of division of work, Taylor could not entrust one person to perform all these 8 functions. So he decided that there should be 8 key people inside a factory, inside every factory, to perform these 8 key functions. Now let us see what are all those 8 key functions. They will be further classified into 4 key activities of one group and 4 key activities of another group. The first group is responsible for the planning aspect, and the second group is responsible for the execution aspect or the production aspect. So under the planning aspect, there are 4 key roles that are there. Let us see what are they one by one. Instruction card clerk, route clerk, time and cost clerk, and then disciplinarian. Please understand, all these 4 people will not directly involved in the production process. They are involved in the process, but they take care of planning. Their core emphasis, their core focus is on the planning aspect. They will not directly get into the execution aspect. So you need to understand that first. So what is this instruction card clerk does this? He drafts the instructions for workers. There will be lots of low level workers inside a factory. Those people will be waiting for the instructions because every day the production plan might differ. Someday, let's say it's a food processing company, someday they will decide to make vanilla milkshake, someday they will decide to make strawberry milkshake. So every morning the worker has to know today what are we going to produce and today and what are the key instructions that they should keep in mind. So that's the job of the instruction card clerk. The second person is route clerk. He specifies the route of production. Here the concept of route is where should the raw material go first, what process should be done first, then what should happen, and finally where it should end. Okay, let's say you are making milkshakes. So the first step is to prepare the milk, clean the milk first, to heat it well and then kill the bacteria and everything, and then cool down the milkshake and then add all the ingredients, flavors and everything. So prepare the milk first and then they will send it to the packing area and there it will be packed and finally it will be sent to the finished goods storage area. So this is the route. So the route clerk will tell, okay, today the first thing it should go to the heating chamber. Milk should be routed to the heating chamber. So this is exactly how the route clerk's job is. The next person is time and cost clerk. So this person is responsible for following the entire production process and he has to note down exactly what amount of time has taken in that particular aspect, in that particular process, and how much also the cost has taken. That is his or her responsibility, the time and cost clerk's responsibility. To give you an example, this we talked about in the yesterday's class itself. Let's say a carpenter, he's in the process of turning raw wood into a processed furniture, a fully finished furniture. At each and every stage, how much is the time that is going to take, he will note down, he has to note down. So let's say how long does it take to select the wood first, and then how long does it take to season the wood, make it conditioned, then they will cut the wood and then fine tune the edges, and then they will fit the cut pieces into a chair and then they will stick it with the gum. So along with the each and every stage of the production, the time and cost clerk's job is to note down how long is it taking, and thereby they will have the data later on. Okay, are we doing it fast enough or not? You should also not do too fast because the quality will be compromised. At the same time, you should not focus too much on quality and lose on speed. Both should be maintained. So that's the job of time and cost clerk. And the last person in the planning department is disciplinarian. So this is exactly how it sounds. This guy's job is to be a moral supervisor who will go on rounds inside the factory and he will make sure that the workers are actually doing the work and they are not slacking off, doing chit chat or taking unnecessarily long breaks or doing the work in a very, very slow or inefficient manner. All these things will come under his responsibility. So those are the 4 people under planning department. Now we will see the 4 people under production department. So the first person here is speed boss. The speed boss is the supervisor who will work similar to the time and cost clerk and disciplinarian because he is also responsible for timely and accurate completion of job. So both job has to be done quickly as well as it also should be completed within the time. So now you can see the similarity between the roles of disciplinarian and speed boss, also the role of cost clerk. See, time and cost clerk will not impose on people. He will just simply note down like a scorer in a cricket match. He will just simply note down things. So that's what time and cost clerk will do. He will note down things and at the end of the day, he will pass on the data to his superiors. But speed boss and disciplinarian, their roles kind of overlap each other. Now let's talk about what is a gang boss. Now the name sounds little, little rowdy, but let's see what the gang boss is responsible for. He is responsible for keeping the tools and machines ready. So every morning, the role of gang boss, or not just every morning, before every shift, the role of the gang boss is to make sure that the machines are ready for production. To give you an example, imagine your favorite podcast. Now, what are all there will be in a podcast? There will be a proper seating place, and the background has to be good, the lighting has to be good, and the mic audio sound quality has to be good. Do you think the person who is conducting the podcast will do all these things? No. The person who is hosting the podcast and also the person who comes as a guest, they will not do all these type of work. To set up the podcast before the conversation begins will be the responsibility of a cameraman and the sound engineers. They will first prepare the studio, set up the studio, keep the mic properly, set up the camera properly, and they have to test whether the light is coming correctly or not. All these things they will test long before the conversation begins. They'll make sure that the studio is good for recording. They will give green signal, and then only the podcast will begin. So that's exactly how the gang boss also work, because you should not be depending on the workers to set up their missions. The job of the workers is to just operate the machine and get the output. Setting up the machine, preparing up the workplace should be done by the gang boss. So again, division of work. Repair boss. So gang boss is the person who does the job before the commencement of every shift, but repair boss is the person who should be on standby in case of emergencies. Let's say there is a machine, there is an assembly line running, and a particular worker has inserted a spanner in a way he is not supposed to. So the spanner got stuck in the chain of the machine and the whole production machine has stopped. So it is not giving you any output. So immediately this repair boss will come. He will immediately spot where the trouble is. He will alert all the workers. He will probably halt the entire production for a couple of minutes. He will immediately pull out the spanner, get the machine ready for the subsequent operation, and the production will resume after that. So that is the repair boss, basically a mechanic. And then the last person in production is the inspector. The inspector is responsible for ensuring the quality of the output that is coming out of the factory. For example, I have gone to audits in a lot of different types of factories. One of them is they make potato chips. So in that factory, there will be a person who is sitting on the output side of the production line. His very job is to pick up each piece of potato, almost, let's say, at one batch, let's say there are some 10,000, 15,000 chips that are coming at every minute. He will pick like 50, 60 chips, individual piece. He will see them, he will break them to see if they have been fried properly or not. And then some he will also eat. So his main job is to just stand there and eat chips all day. So that's pretty much the quality inspector's work in a food factory will be. Because they will have to immediately give the feedback in case, let's say, one set of 10,000, 15,000 chips have come and all of them have been too much fried beyond quality specification. Then the inspector will immediately stop the production line, and so that they will immediately rectify or maybe they lower down the temperature of the oil or change some other variable so that they will ensure whatever the chips that are subsequently coming don't get deep fried. So that's exactly the person who is inspector does the work. He does quality check. So all put together, these 8 people will directly control every other workman in the factory. In today's video, we will talk about standardization of work and simplification of work. We are currently going through Taylor's scientific management. First, let's talk about the standardization aspect. What I have written here, outputs to remain consistent. Let's take the example of the food that is cooked in our house by our mother or maybe grandmother or some other relative. Let's say she gives you lunch. You take it to school. Some days the rice will be very, very well cooked, but some days the rice will be little raw and dry. Because of that, even if they make the same type of recipe, the output, the taste of that output will keep varying from one day to the other because it depends on lots of variables. If it is our household, it doesn't matter. We just need to eat and move on to the next thing. But when we go into commercial aspect, it has to be consistent. If you go to some star hotels or even some normal range restaurant, when professional chefs make dosa, if they make 100 dosas, all 100 dosas will be in the same dimension and it will be fried to the same extent, the color, almost everything will be consistent, because professionals, they make sure that their work, that their output is standardized. So this is the general explanation of standardization. Now let's talk about some specific aspects of it. What Taylor wants standardization to achieve. Taylor believes that standardization should achieve the following four things. The first is to reduce a given line or product to fixed types, sizes, and characteristics. The example I have given is Apple's iPhone line. Every year when Apple releases a new version of iPhone, how many variants they release? The normal one, the Pro one, and the Pro Max one. So when you buy a normal one, every phone, let's say Apple makes 3 lakh units of iPhone 16, almost every 3 lakh unit should remain identical. And the Apple company is able to achieve this because almost everything is done by machines, the cutting aspect, measuring aspect. So the accuracy is extreme in those cases. So the first point is to reduce a given line. Also, you have to see from this perspective aspect, not just from dimensions, you can also see the color aspect. Every Apple has, say, 4 to 5 colors maximum, isn't it? So you don't get infinite number of colors. So what will happen? There are so many colors. If you want, you can customize it to a limitless number of phones, right? But what happens if extreme customization is available? Then Apple will lose control of how many different types of variants that are there. So if you keep it within 3 to 4 possible colors, then it is manageable. So that is another aspect. To reduce a given line, don't extend the line unnecessarily or beyond your control. So that's the first point. Second point is to exchange interchangeability of manufactured parts and products. So example for the second point I can give you is the Type-C cables that we use. So we have one Type-C cable, and to how many things do we use it? I use my Type-C cable for all the cell phones that I have. I even charge my Kindle with a Type-C cable. The very camera that I'm recording, the camera's battery is charged by the same Type-C cable. And also this very mic that I'm using, I've connected with my PC. It is connected through a Type-C cable. So the cable is just one, but it is able to do a lot of multiple aspects. So that is the interchangeability aspect. I can use the same cable in across many devices and for very different purposes. So that's the second point. The third point is to establish standards of excellence and quality in materials. Now this is the closest point to what I said at the beginning of this lecture, which is outputs should remain consistent. So it should not give you a jarring effect. I'll give you some example. Color grading in movies, and you can also see the channel thumbnail of this very same channel. First we'll see color grading. Let's say a movie, unless the movie goes through different timelines, or unless the movie is shot in different localities, the color grading of that movie will not change. Every movie will have one tone, and the editors will set that filter for that entire movie. Let's say a movie is in present and then it goes to past, maybe to make you understand that you are in the past, then they will slightly change the color, and then when they get back to the present, the color will shift. But when the movie plot is going on in the present, the editors will not mess with the color. So again, it will create discomfort, isn't it? This very video that you are seeing, I set a particular color, I edited it so that it remains consistent throughout the video. What if, imagine every 10 seconds I keep changing the filter, or I did not set the filter properly. So again, you will not have a comfortable viewing experience. So that is the first thing. Also, you can see the thumbnails of this channel. You can probably, after this video, can go to the library. You can see I changed the thumbnail design only every chapter. One design per chapter, and how many ever lectures that chapter has, it will have the same thumbnail only. Design will be same. I just change the lecture name from lecture 1, lecture 2, lecture 3. That's it. So you can also know when you scroll through the library, okay, at which chapter that I am right now, and then you will know, okay, the title will vary, so you know which topic you have to select. The last point in standardization is to establish standards of performance of men and machines. So whenever I review the performance of men and machines, I have to uniformize the metric that I'm using to review the performance. To give you an example, strike rate of a batsman in T20 cricket. So let's say you are evaluating players for T20 cricket. How do you select them? If you want to select batsmen, then you will see the strike rate aspect, right? Today, strike rate is the most basic metric, the most used benchmark to evaluate players' performance in T20 cricket. So you cannot use, let's say, strike rate for one batsman and then you suddenly go to another batsman and evaluate that batsman based on balls per boundary. So these two are two different metrics. So you cannot have two different metrics and keep using one and whichever that you like. You will not get a proper evaluation out of it. So uniformize that also. When you are reviewing something, set the benchmark into one, standardize that, and then you compare that benchmark with the actual performance of many different things. So that's the standardization aspect. So I hope you understood this. Now let's go to simplification of work. Eliminate every unnecessary feature, function, part or component in a product or service. In other words, in simple words, eliminate waste. What happens when designers come up with a product, they get a bit too creative and they end up adding a lot of fancy items into the mix. Those fancy items are not essential for the functioning of that product. Even without those fancy products, the product will still function and do its job. I'll give you some examples. I will show you a couple of pictures. This is the first picture. This is the CPU of an assembled PC, gaming PC. Now you see, you can immediately spot a lot of unnecessary things for a PC to function normally. I agree that it's a gaming PC, so gaming PC should look little flashy and everything. But if you purely talk from performance aspect, if you take a minimalist aspect, you see you don't need this fancy fans and lights and all those things, particularly the lights, isn't it? Now you also see the space that is left, open space that is left inside this PC CPU. You can also see how heavy it gets because of all these unnecessary fancy items. Now I will show you a contrast picture to this, which is the Mac Mini. You see, this is Apple's Mac Mini. How simple it is. It just fits within the palm of your hand, isn't it? So small, so light, but it does the same job of what this gaming PC could do, or even maybe little faster than that, little much more than that. The very video that you are watching right now is being recorded and edited in a Mac Mini only, which this is right here. I prefer Mac Mini over this gaming PC any day because it is small, it doesn't occupy a lot of space in my desk, and if I really want to travel, and I can easily pack this on my backpack and go to a place wherever that I want, and there I just have to connect it with a TV using a HDMI cable. And anyway, wherever I go, people these days have keyboard and mouse, so I can connect it and directly start working there as well. So the point I'm trying to say is, imagine carrying this on an airplane or carrying this wherever that you want to go. You cannot carry this that easily, isn't it? So that's the aspect of simplification. Now the assignment that I want to give you in today's class is, observe the products that you see in your life and services that you see in your life and try to figure out how many non-essential things are inside that particular product. How many unnecessary things are loaded into a design of a product. And if you really get to see something, let me know in the comments also, and I would love to read that. In today's video, we will be talking about these 4 studies of Taylor's scientific management. We are currently seeing Taylor's scientific management techniques. So among the techniques, Taylor prescribes 4 studies to be made, and they are method study, motion study, time study, and fatigue study. Let us look at each and every one of them in detail. So let's first see what is method study. Method study in simple terms is to find out the one best way to do the job. There are always multiple ways to get any job done, but there will always be only one best way to do that same job. Taylor's advice is to find out that one best way and do every time the same job in that best way possible. So why should one always use the best way to do the job? If you use the best way or the best method, you will have the least cost, the least amount of wastage. You will also get the job done at the fastest time possible, and also your final output's quality will also be at its maximum. For these 4 reasons, Taylor prescribes to find out the best method and stick to it every time you perform that job. Let us see some example. I teach accountancy to class 11 and class 12. While students are preparing for their board exams, I advise them to attend all the 6 marks first, then attend 4 marks, then 3 marks, and then finally 1 mark. So I always suggest this order of attending the highest value question first and progressively going to the lower and lower value questions next. The simple logic why I suggest this type of reverse order of attending the paper is that, let's say you have written 74 marks and you just have 6 to 7 minutes left. If you have written 74 marks and you have only 6 minutes left, it is difficult to write one full 6 marks, but it is easy to write 6 1 marks. So that's the idea. At the last moment, you should keep only 1 marks for you. So even if you run short of time, you can quickly think and come up with answers for 1 mark. You cannot do the same thing for 6 mark question. So regarding class 12, regarding class 11 examinations, even to an extent writing CA exams, this is the best way to do this. So that's the method study for you. And let's talk about the second study, which is motion study. This is about study of movements on a factory floor during the normal course of production. The aim of this study is to minimize the in-transit movements inside factory. Okay, I will show you the example here, a disproportionately long house. I'll tell you a quick story. When I grew up, this is around 2003-2004, I used to go to my aunt's place, which was like 30-40 kilometers from my hometown. Her house exactly used to look like this. This was like already built around 1950-1960, so it was already 50-60 years old that time. Bad city planning and bad plot allocation, so they got a ground allocated to them exactly like this, 100 feet long, some 20 feet wide. So they had to have only one plan. This is exactly how they could build their house according to the blueprint. So the entrance will be here and backyard will be here, kitchen is somewhere here. So let's say my aunt was cooking in the kitchen and somebody rings the bell at the door, and let's say there is a postman waiting at the entrance. My aunt has to come all the way, walk 100 feet, get the post collected and go back to kitchen all the way back. So this is exactly how. So let's say I have to go from end to end, they have to walk for 100 feet. So imagine the amount of time that it takes from going from one room to the next room, going from one end of the house to the next end of the house. That is the reason why modern day housing, the house is planned somewhat like a squarish and not like disproportionate rectangle. If you take from square feet perspective, this house and this house could be of the same dimension. This was actually a 2000 square foot house, and this could also be a roughly 2000 square feet house. But because of this structure, because of these dimensions, it is easy to navigate from one end of the house to the other end. You don't have to walk that much. You have to apply the same concept inside factory. Workers should not keep walking for a long period of time to get the tools, to move from one end of the line, assembly line, to the next end, or let's say they have to take washroom break, or they have to go and drink water. Or for all these reasons, the Taylor's plan is to minimize workers' movement inside factory, because when workers move more, they don't spend their time in production. Movement is like a waste of time, and because of that, extra time will be taken, and also workers will get tired much faster. So that was the idea behind motion study prescribed by Taylor. In your real life, where can you see motion study? You can see in railway stations, you can also see in airports. Railway stations and airports are designed in such a way that where passengers can enter the airport and get to their desired gate or desired platform in a much faster way, where they don't want to walk for much longer. If passengers are subjected to walk unnecessarily longer, it will create unnecessary crowd inside the airport, inside the railway station, which might result to some stampede occasions. So that's why when airports, right when they design the railway stations, right when they design the outlay, they make sure that the movement is extremely minimized. So that was the second point. And the third point is time study. This is quite obvious. Study of how long does it take to perform a job and how to optimize the process. It is also about how to plan your resources. It also helps in planning my resources. I'll give you examples. So the first thing about time study is Taylor used to stand with a stopwatch next to a worker and exactly measure the time to the last second. How long does it take to perform a particular job inside a big project, so that they can calculate the time taken at every stage of the project, add it up and give an estimation to the management to say that okay, for this particular job this much amount of time will be taken. Say to manufacture a scooter, it will take exactly 1 minute because it spends 10 seconds here, 20 seconds there, 7 seconds here, 8 seconds there, add it all up, you get 63 seconds. So roughly every 60 seconds or every minute a scooter is being made. Or let's say it takes 3 minutes to manufacture a car. So again, there could be some 20 different individual stages inside the manufacture of a car. At each place it might take 10 to 15 seconds. So you add it all up, it might round up to 180 to 200 seconds inside the assembly line. So the computation, okay, it takes 3 minutes to manufacture a car from beginning to the end. So that's how it works in mass production of cars. Now I have given here an example called resource estimation during an audit. So this is again a personal example. We will do time study in order to get an estimate of how much resource is required to do a particular audit or a particular project. Let's say I have an audit assignment in a factory which is situated in Gujarat, and I was located in, my headquarters was in Chennai. I have to plan the entire trip to Gujarat. How long should I stay there? How long the work will be there? I will consult with my boss and my boss will give me briefing about what are the exact tasks to be done in that particular project, and I will get an estimation of, say it will take 30 hours to complete that assignment. Now then I will ask my boss, how long is the deadline? Do I have 2 days to finish this project or do I have 1 week to finish this project? If my boss says yes, you have to finish the project within 2 days, so 30 hours, isn't it? So I will go with 2 resources, which is me and one more person. We will work for 2 days. So totally 32 hours of productivity will be there and we will be able to complete the assignment within 2 days. But if my boss says that it is not so an urgent work and I can take like 4 to 5 days to complete the project, then I alone will go to Gujarat and I will not carry any person along with me because it will cost extra money, a flight ticket or a train ticket. Then there we will have to arrange for accommodation and everything. So I alone will go and finish the job in a much cheaper way because I will work for 8 hours a day and the total time taken to complete the project is 30 hours. So if I work for 4 days, I will approximately complete the project by the end of day 4 and I will come back to Chennai after that. So that's how we plan how much resources do we need for particular project. So that's exactly how time study works. And the last is fatigue study. Determine how much rest and intervals is to be given in between and at the end of a task. So we all know the importance of recovery. If we don't recover and if we keep on push and if we keep on pressing the gas pedal and we keep on going, we will get burnt out at one point. They call this sharpen the saw, isn't it? So if you are trying to cut a tree and you have a saw, you first sharpen the saw. The more you sharpen the saw, the faster and the easier it is for you to cut the tree. This is a term that is used to connote how recovery is important for the people, how physically and mentally every person should recover before they resume the job. So that is fatigue study. So recovery is part of the job, even though it may look and sound unproductive because workers are not actually working when they are in a recovery period. It is unavoidable because if you don't give enough recovery period to the workers, they will be burnt out and their output and their contribution will start to diminish after a while if they are not recovered properly. And ultimately, that will also be an added cost for the factory. It will increase the cost of the products, it will lead to unnecessary abnormal losses, and it has many undesired consequences. Therefore, when you plan for a workflow, you should also plan for recovery. In modern day, a lot of sports team, in any sport for that matter, be it football or basketball or rugby, the teams invest so much on the recovery of the players. Let's say there is a Premier League football, a team plays for almost 38 games in the Premier League itself. Beyond that, they also play other league games as well. So almost the team plays, let's say 50 to 60 games in a year, which is high intensity games. If the players don't get recovered properly, they will be injured in the next game. Ultimately, it will result to bad performance for the team. So now I hope you understood this concept of fatigue study. So these are the 4 studies that come under Taylor's scientific management techniques. In today's class, we will talk about differential piece wage system, how one should reward the workers working inside a factory. There is a normal piece wage system and then there is this differential piece wage system. Let's look at both. Let's compare and contrast both of them so that you will even understand differential piece wage system in a much better way. Okay, under the normal piece wage system, workers are rewarded the same amount of money irrespective of their output. Let's say you are running a factory and there are 100 workers inside that factory. You will fix a constant rate for all the workers for working, say, a shift of 7 hours or 8 hours. You will decide an amount, say, for a 7-hour shift, a worker gets 300 rupees, or for an 8-hour shift, a worker gets 400 rupees. It doesn't matter how each and every worker produces the X number of quantity or more than X or less than X. It doesn't matter to you. You are quite generous about it and you reward your workers based on the hours they worked. What is the advantage of this? The advantage is that it is quite simple. You can simply calculate the daily total wage cost by multiplying the number of workers employed that day versus the cost per worker for that shift. You will get the daily total cost easily. That's the only advantage. But what could be the disadvantageous factor in that? Workers, when they know they are going to get a fixed amount of reward at the end of the day, will tend to work slower and slower. They will not bring that enthusiasm into work every day. What happens? Let's say you have fixed 300 rupees per worker for 8 hours. It doesn't matter how much he produces at the end of the day. So what that worker generally will do, maybe for a first couple of weeks, he will come to the work with drive and enthusiasm and he will work almost to the fullest of his capability. But then eventually he will get bored of this routine and he will know that anyway, even if I push myself so hard and struggle so badly, I'm going to get 300. And even if I slack off a little bit or kind of roam around here and there and produce a little less amount of output, I'm going to still get the same wage. So why to trouble myself? Let me coast off a bit. That's how the natural tendency of the workers thinking will go eventually. And when a couple of workers start to do like this, start to think and behave like this inside a team, it will naturally spread to the other efficient workers also. Now, this will eventually lead to lower and lower output per day, and eventually the production cost will increase. So, Taylor came up with an idea to counter this drawback, that he has proposed this concept of differential piece wage system. So, according to his theory, he will classify workers into efficient and inefficient. How can he classify people as efficient and inefficient? So Taylor says that every factory should have a daily target output fixed. So let's say you are also again in your factory's case. Now you have fixed a target of every worker should produce at least 200 units. It can be anything. It can be, let's say you are running a packaging company, and for the sake of simplicity, the product is the same. You just have to make the workers come and pack the products with the primary packaging, and then they have to also, let's say, shrink wrap it, and it should be made for selling. Pretty much it takes the same amount of work, same type of work for all the workers, for all the units. So we have simplified our example. In that situation, you will fix a target of every day a worker should at least do this type of packaging for 200 units. Now, this is the daily target. Then you will compare the output of each and every worker at the end of the day. Let's say I also said you have 100 workers in your factory. Out of the 100 workers, let's say 80 workers have completed this target of 200. Among this 80, some people have even exceeded the target of 200 units of output, and then the rest 20, they fell short of this 200 units. Let's say they produced only 180 or 190 units. Now you will start to see the workers getting classified into efficient and inefficient. Okay, what after you found out who was efficient and who was inefficient? Taylor says that reward the efficient workers more and penalize the inefficient workers a little bit. Now we can see our example. The target fixed was 200 units, and instead of having one standard rate for every worker, we have two differential rates, which is if the worker exceeds the daily target of 200, then they get to earn 12 rupees per unit for the entire output that they produced. But if the workers are falling short of this 200, then their per unit wage rate drops to only 8 per unit for the entire output produced. Now let's say there is an efficient worker and there is this inefficient worker. The efficient worker makes 220 units of output, so he gets to earn 12 rupees per unit, thereby the wage at the end of the day will be 2640. And let's say there is this inefficient worker, he managed to manufacture only 180 units, and thereby he gets to earn only 8 per unit. Therefore his daily earning at the end of the day is only 1440. Now what will happen? This inefficient workers will eventually get to know that they made only 1440 per day, but there are some other people who are working much better than them and they are taking home 2640 per day. So this will sort of drive that competition factor into them, and they will also start to feel that, okay, let me see how I can shape up myself so that in the next day when I come, my output will increase eventually. So now every worker start to have a healthy competition between each other, and therefore if each and every worker starts to maximize their output, then imagine the cumulative effect that will have on the entire factory level. So that's how Taylor believes, and also proven this fact by using this differential piece wage system. The outputs have phenomenally increased in whichever factory they have applied this concept. In today's video, we'll talk about 4 important scientific management terms, which are just-in-time, lean manufacturing, Kaizen, and Six Sigma. Let's get into the video. The first one is just-in-time technology. This is a type of manufacturing technology. Normally what will happen, companies will have a basic idea of, okay, a rough estimate of how much demand could be there in the market. Then they will produce X number of quantities. Let's say you are selling shampoos. Now, if you don't apply just in time, if you go by the normal production methodology, you will manufacture, say, 10,000 units at one shot, do a bulk manufacturing, and then you will keep pushing your salesmen to go aggressively on the market and try to sell that 10,000 units. Let's say you have a good time and you have a good brand value and you don't have much of competition, you will end up selling this 10,000 units much quickly. But let's say the competition is heavy, which is most likely the case, and let's say you also don't have that much of a market share. Now, your salesmen, no matter how much hard they try, they will not be able to sell this 10,000 units that much faster. So, what will happen, even after so much work, you would have only sold 3,000 to 4,000 units in the market. So, what happens to the other 6,000, 7,000 units? It will be lying in your godown unnecessarily. This is the normal system. So, what the factories have decided, they decided to employ this concept called just in time methodology. In this just in time, they believe that first they will take the exact unit, they will not do estimation out of this, they will take an exact order of how much demand is there. They will let their salesman go, or they will get orders from their buyers themselves. So they will total all the orders that they got for this particular quarter or this particular month. Let's say the order turns out to be 5,500 units. Then the factories exactly will produce 5,500 units. So that way, right when they finish their production, they will immediately dispatch the finished goods. They will not have any excess inventory lying unsold inside the warehouse. Why? Because the 5,500 units was the actual demand, which they already took count from the market itself, and they are quite sure of that. So there is no chance of having excess production and that is lying idle. Okay, so with that, let's go to the next term, lean manufacturing. Again, lean manufacturing is similar to just in time. Just in time particularly focuses on inventory aspect, but lean manufacturing focuses about reduction of every unnecessary cost. In one of the previous lectures, when we talked about the standardization and simplification of work, I also mentioned about this elimination of unnecessary feature, function, part or component in a product or service. And I gave you a comparison between an assembled gaming PC versus a Mac Mini. So how Mac Mini is much more efficient, much more lean. It was so small, but it was almost able to or even outperform what a gaming PC, assembled gaming PC can do. Because the assembled gaming PC is also quite heavy and it has lots of unnecessary components like fancy lights and etc. The same line of thinking people apply inside a whole factory, a whole company itself. That is lean manufacturing. When I used to work in corporate, when I toured the factory, our job is to make sure that every part of a factory is running only to the minimum requirement, which means we have to find out, is there any unnecessary extra resource employed and it's not giving any output for me. For example, if a particular workstation, say it deserves only 3 workers to be there, which means there is only work for 3 people in that workstation. But let's say the production department employed 5 people in that. So isn't it that I'm paying extra wages for 2 people? And don't you think that it will go for 12 months? Don't you think that it will eventually have an extra cost on the overall factory's profit and loss account? Don't you think it will increase the production cost? So my job is to give a recommendation to the management that in this workstation, 2 people are overemployed. Either redistribute them into a place where there is a real demand. There could be also a place where there is under recruitment of work. Maybe in some workstation, there is a genuine need for 6 people there, but only 4 people would have been employed there. So redirect this 2 people to that workstation, so it will be matched. And also, let's say there is no such case in the rest of the factory, then these 2 people should be sent home. So you cannot keep paying wages for people who are not required in the first place. So this is not just about sending employees or unnecessary workers back to home. This is also about eliminating an unnecessary machine that is lying idle. So let's say because a machine is lying idle in a factory, the storage space is occupied. Okay, isn't it? So it will also cost you money. So if a machine is not giving you output, better to sell that machine, clear the space. So you will either pay less and less rent, or at least you will use that space for some other purpose, which can ultimately make you money. So that is lean manufacturing. So the third point that we will see today is Kaizen. This Kaizen is a Japanese concept which they started employing in all their factories after the Second World War. Now we have a good image about Japanese factories and the products made in Japan. So made in Japan has become a good trustworthy name, isn't it? So that is because after the World War, all Japanese factories started employing this concept called Kaizen, which roughly translate into English as constant and never ending improvement. So the improvement is always constant. It doesn't talk about big breakthrough changes. It's not like 180-degree shift in thinking. It's about that tiny 1%, 2% improvement. But Japanese started to adopt this concept pretty much in every walk of their life. The Japanese factories will adopt, even, is there a better way for me to throw this waste inside dustbin? Can I do this in a much more efficient way? So that is Kaizen. So not just in big areas, even an area that we find it trivial, say waste management, garbage disposal, Japanese adopted that attitude. So inside that trivial aspect also, thereby when every production process inside a factory gets streamlined, keep on improving, it will have a compounded growth in a very long period of time. You must have heard about this book called Atomic Habits, isn't it? The 1% improvement, which is a quite famous book, which I highly recommend for all students to read. So this 1% improvement, tiny improvement, largely is based on this Kaizen concept only. And lastly, we have this term called Six Sigma, which talks about extreme prioritization for quality to make the products extremely filled with quality. So Six Sigma, you can call yourself Six Sigma only when you have 3 to 4 defects per million units of output, which means you should have 99.9999% of good quality output, which means you should not have 0.0001% defects only in your entire output. The example we can see here is the Dabbawalas. You must have seen the case study of Dabbawalas in chapter 1 under the coordination subtopic. So Dabbawalas carry lunch boxes from the worker's house to their workstation. The worker's house will be located somewhere in suburbs, which could be 25-30 kilometers, and the workplace will be in the middle of city. So Dabbawalas will collect the lunch from the house, and they will have this sorting and distribution system, and finally a different person who is responsible for that particular locality will end up delivering it to the exact right at the desk of the employee. So this they will do with extreme accuracy. I asked you to have a look at the videos on YouTube on how Dabbawalas do this sorting system. They have only one mistake across 6 million deliveries. This I checked on Wikipedia. You can also have a check if you want. Only one mistake across 6 million deliveries. Imagine 60 times they will deliver. In those 60 times, only one time, either they misdeliver it to somebody else, or they may, maybe lose the tiffin box on the way. Something. The failure rate is only 1 among 6 million deliveries or 60 lakh deliveries. Imagine the quality of the output or the success rate. So that is Six Sigma. In today's video, we'll talk about Fayol's principles of management. Fayol talks about 14 general principles of management. Let's see them one by one. So the first principle is division of work. What is division of work? You would have already seen this in your own life. You would have gone to a student Xerox shop, generally run by a single person. Whether you wanted to take a photocopy of a page from a book, or you want to do a spiral binding of your school assignment, or you want to take printout from your mail or from a pen drive, you approach the shop, the person gets the pen drive, inserts in the computer, copies the file, takes the printout, or the person accesses his mail, gets the printout, gets the money. He himself goes inside into the machine room and he takes the photocopy or takes the printout, does the spiral binding, and at the end of the day, the same person closes the shutter and closes the shop. Everything from end to end is done by that one person. So this is no division of work. But when the organization gets bigger and bigger, probably you would have gone to a department store or probably you would have gone to a supermarket where each and every category of product is managed by a separate person. There you would have seen a lot of different salespeople for each and every category of the products that are being sold there. And when you come to the billing counter, you might also see a couple of people or 3 to 4 people having separate counters for them to manage the crowd. And when you're done with the shopping, when you come out, there will be a separate person in charge of, he will get the bill from you, affix the seal, delivered or paid, to indicate that the goods have actually been handed over to you. If you see, both are organizations, business organizations. One type of organization is very simple and there is no division of work. And the other type of organization has many people and the work is divided across many people. Some person takes care of billing, some person takes care of sales, some person takes care of accounting, and some person takes care of security. Each and every work is divided. Fayol recommends that let the work be divided and not be clustered into a single group of people or a single person for that matter. Because when work is divided, each and every person gets a very simple instruction of only 2 to 3 things to do and they will do that thing properly. And let's say if that person gets sick or gets disqualified to remain in the job and you want to replace that person, you can sack that person and replace that person with another person. If a person manages multiple portfolios inside the same organization, one thing is it becomes extremely difficult to replace that person because that person is too skilled. And the second thing is there is a higher chances of getting many mismanagements happening inside that job position. So that is the first principle, division of work. Let's go to the second principle, which is authority and responsibility. You have to understand authority is for the people higher up in the organization and responsibility is for the people below the person who is having authority. So generally authority is linked with superiors and the responsibility is for the subordinates. Now, how do you define how much authority should be given to a person and how much responsibility should be given to a person? That has to be decided on case to case basis. But let me give you an example. The person at the lower level management, we saw in the first chapter, isn't it? Middle management and operational level management. The people at the lower stages of the organization usually will get very limited amount of authority. They will not be having too much power within them, so they cannot take many more decisions like the people at the higher levels of hierarchy in a business. Let me give you an example. There was a salesperson in a company that I worked previously. He wanted to increase sales. So he decided to run a lucky draw competition among his customers, which are the distributors of the company that I used to work for. He did not ask any permission to conduct this type of competition from the head office. He himself proposed this competition. The intention behind his activity is good and genuine because he wanted to increase sales. When you increase sales, your name gets popular in the company. So he might have wanted to come up in the ranks of the organization. So his intentions are okay. But he did not have the authority to conduct a lucky draw competition fully on his own. He must have discussed that with the general manager of sales. Let's say I am the salesperson and I want to increase the sales of a company which I work for. So I said that I should propose an idea to the general manager of sales. Okay, the distributors are doing quite okay-ish. If we want to create some more interest, we can generate more sales through them. So how do you create some more interest and engagement from distributors? We can call them for an evening of lucky draw competition, have a mini party kind of things, and that will have more distributors gathering and they will socialize, and based on that they will get good opinion about our company and they might get more comfortable with our company, and then they might place bigger orders for our company. So the idea is good, but I should have said this to my general manager of sales first. The general manager will see the pros and cons of conducting a lucky draw competition. Okay, let's say the advantages, if you conduct a lucky draw competition, distributors will be happy, somebody will win. It creates curiosity among the customers. They might place a higher volume of order the next time. But when you conduct a competition like that, you have to give them the prizes. So what type of prizes are you going to give? Are you going to give a costly prize like a car or a two-wheeler? Let's say you go ahead with giving a car. Because the price is so high, then you will even attract more distributors. Let's say you raise the stake and you say that there is a lucky draw competition for 250 distributors. The winner will get a Toyota Innova car. Now the Toyota Innova car will cost you 20 lakhs. Do you have the budget? Right? So you cannot give a person at just a salesman level that kind of authority. So I happened to get the information from a whistleblower. So I happened to travel to this very place. I found him doing this behavior and we had warned him severely that he should not indulge in this type of activity any more time. Because his intentions were good, we just let go of him and did not punish him that much. If his intentions were also bad, then we would have actually sacked him out of the company. So that is authority and responsibility. But we also gave a warning that in case he's found doing this type of creative things on his own without consulting the seniors of the company, in case he doesn't follow the protocol, then he will get strict action the next time. So that is authority and that is responsibility. Let's talk about the third point, which is discipline. Fayol is a strong proponent of discipline within the factory. Discipline ensures order. If you don't have discipline, you will have chaos inside the factory and it will not be an effective management. Chaos will result in loss of resources, loss of time. Employees should ensure that they adhere to the organizational rules as strictly as possible. Now, let's talk about some examples with respect to discipline. Fayol says that the penalties should be judiciously applied to each violation that is happening inside the organization. Because employees, you may not guarantee that they will always adhere to every principle or every disciplinary activity that is recommended. There will be some breach every now and then. Now, Fayol says that you have to penalize them, but don't over penalize them. See the level of their mistake and then decide upon the level of punishment that you have to give. I've given some example. Let's say every employee gets, normally in Indian companies, every employee gets 2 days of paid leave, which means they can still make leave, need not come to office, and still they will get paid. So 2 such days are allowed in a month for an employee. Beyond the second day, let's say a person takes the 3rd day or 4th day leave, the 3rd and 4th day, the pay will be cut. Let's say a person deliberately doesn't want to come to office, or there is some genuine need for that person. Still, the company kind of treats it like a violation of discipline, the discipline of attendance. So you don't come to office, you will not work. If you don't work, I will not be able to pay you. So that is the idea behind this disciplinary action. The company does not immediately sack or fire the employee just because he has put a leave on the 3rd day, but that will be too much of a punishment, isn't it? So the company decides that I have already allowed you 2 days of leave. Now you have taken that leave for the 3rd day. So I will just not give you salary for those days. You can still come to the office on 4th day, but I will not pay you for the 3rd day of leave that you made. So that's the mild form of penalty. Let's talk about some severe cases of punishment. In my corporate experience, I have seen a lot of situations where employees used to steal the company's resources. And the employees used to steal in the form of cash or steal in the form of stock. and sometimes steal in the form of company's assets itself. They will take some fixed asset and they will just steal and disappear. When you catch such an employee, you cannot just reprimand, you cannot just give him warning or something like that, because it is a much more severe form of violation. So it takes a stricter level of action. So companies generally file legal complaint against this type of activity. The employee has to return back all the money and all the resources that they stole from the company. If they have it in the form of cash, let them give it in the form of cash. Or if they have stolen the assets in the form of stock and they have sold the assets and converted into cash, they have to return back the assets in the form of cash. And then they will be obviously fired from the company, and they will not be at any point of time be hired back in the same company. So that is again for this level of violation, this level of punishment. For this level of violation, the punishment also should be at that level. So that is point number 3, which is the discipline. In today's video, we will talk 3 more principles of Fayol's managerial principles. The first one is unity of command. This principle talks about subordinates should receive order from only one superior, which means if I am a manager, I can have many subordinates to me, I can have many assistants to me. But if I am one of the subordinates, I should have only one manager to me. A boss can have multiple employees, but an employee cannot have multiple bosses. This will create confusion and this will create chaos. Ask me how. In your school, you must be having at least 4 or 5 teachers, one teacher per subject. Let's say your maths teacher gives you a homework, gives you an assignment, and your accounts teacher also gives you a homework or an assignment. And both of them gave you very short time period to complete. Let's say they just informed you about the task today and they are asking you to submit it by tomorrow. And both of them have given huge sizable task. Now, which one will you prioritize? If you prioritize math and if you go with accounts homework incomplete, your accounts teacher is going to be angry. And at the same time, if you prioritize accounts, your maths teacher is going to be angry. And let's say if maths teacher and your accounts teacher don't get along well, and if you complete accounts, if you prioritize accounts and the rest of the year your maths teacher is going to see you like an enemy, the trajectory of the story I guess you can predict. This is what will happen exactly if a single subordinate is receiving commands from multiple center. Let's say you work in a company and you have 3 bosses sitting above you giving orders. Now, which one will you prioritize at first? Isn't it? So the conflict will be never ending. Very rarely all the 3 bosses will be in perfect understanding and they will forgive and be generous towards each other. So the best way to prevent this confusion is to make sure that every employee has only one superior to them. Now this is exactly opposite to what Taylor has proposed. If you recall, Taylor has come up with this concept called functional foremanship, isn't it? So he says that every factory should have 8 supervisors and that 8 supervisors should manage each and every employee. That means if you are an employee, if you are a worker inside a factory, and if that factory follows Taylor's scientific principles, you will be having 8 people ordering you every time. We saw many people, right? Instruction card clerk, route clerk, gang boss, speed boss. We saw so many people. Imagine all of them having their own command and having their own agenda and been pushing you, pressurizing you each and every hour. Imagine answering to 8 people at the same time. Confusion, isn't it? So Fayol says that let there be division of work, but let there also be unity of command. So that's the first principle of today's video. Let's go to the next principle, which is unity of direction. This is also pretty much similar to the previous principle. In unity of direction, we need to understand that a business will have multiple functions. Functions like purchase department, marketing department, sales department, and human resource department, production department, planning department. It goes on and on. Each and every department is a function, and each and every function will have its own goal. For example, for production department, maximizing the output and reducing cost per unit is the total objective. So that's the direction that the factory will be traveling towards, or the production department will be moving towards. For purchase department, they will get rewarded more when they end up purchasing a lot of raw material at the cheapest price. So what the natural tendency of purchase department will be? The natural tendency of purchase department will be to maximize the purchase, place the biggest volume of order all the time so that they get the materials at a cheaper price. Let's say if the factory makes milkshake and the purchase department's main raw material is to buy sugar. Now let's say a gunny bag of sugar costs you say 1000 rupees, and if you buy 20 gunny bags, the per unit rate will be 1000 per gunny bag. But let's say instead of buying 20, if they buy 200, they might get the gunny bag for 850 to 900 rupees. So that means they are saving 100 rupees per bag. So that will be overall cost reduction. But instead of buying 20 bags, they will end up buying 200 bags. That means over purchase. Let's say the factory does not even need 200 gunny bags of sugar. So now where will they store it? Again, let's say if the factory is little moist, or if there is some pest issues, all the raw material will go bad in quality. So all those problems, subsequent problems will be there. So all the departments should work together, come together, and they should work in unison. They should understand, okay, my function's goal is this direction, but the organization's overall goal is in the other direction. So I have to compromise my goal and then let me go towards the organization's goal. The organization's goal is to be, let's say, give the maximum value to shareholder. So how can you give maximum value to shareholder? If you make more profit, you will give maximum value to shareholder. How can you make more profit? If you don't make unnecessary losses. So if the production department thinks that for me, I have to keep producing. If the purchase department keeps thinking that for me, I have to make the most amount of purchases so that my cost will be down. I don't care about what happens with sales department, what happens with the costing department, or what happens with the finance department. I really don't care. For me, I have to achieve my goal. If each and every department acts in their own goals and if they go in their same direction, then it will ultimately affect the company's overall profitability, and the company will fail in its ultimate objective, which is to provide maximum value to shareholders. So that leads us to the next principle, subordination of individual interest to general interest. This is largely similar to the previous point only, which means you should stop being selfish and start looking at the larger interest at a team's perspective, at a company level's perspective. We can see this example many times in football and cricket, isn't it? In cricket, let's say a batsman wants to improve their batting average, so they will naturally tend to play defensive game, or they will focus on just being not out instead of scoring runs. Let's say if the team is chasing and you need say 9 runs per over, one batsman will think that if I play risky shot, I will get out, that will reduce my batting average. So let me just play singles and doubles and not go for risky shot. But then the required run rate will keep on climbing and eventually the team will lose. The batsman might stay not out at the end. His batting average will only increase based on him being not out. But what happened with the team? The team ultimately failed, isn't it? You lost the game. So that is exactly what should not happen at the organization level. Sometimes individual employees, they tend to think from their perspective only. They will become so selfish. Either they will become too aggressive and end up doing something irrational, which will ultimately cost the company. If you remember in the previous class, I talked about authority versus responsibility. I gave you an example. There was a salesman in the company that I worked who wanted to do good for himself, who wanted to come up in the ranks of the organization, did some lucky draw competition on his own without consulting the seniors. He might have got a good name among his customers, his distributors, but ultimately it will put the company in trouble. So nobody should have ego and think like they are the star of the team, or without them the team is gone. So the moment you think like you are a star, then you will start to put your interest first and you will forget about the team's interest. And most likely in such type of situations, you are putting the team in trouble, the company in trouble. So at this situation, I would like to give a quote by John Wooden. John Wooden is this famous basketball coach. The team is the star, never an individual player. Never put an individual player on a pedestal. Always make sure that team is the star, not an individual player. In today's lecture, we will talk about 3 more principles of Fayol's managerial principles. So the first one in today's lecture is 7th principle, remuneration of employees. Fayol insists that factory should pay fair and equitable salary and wages to the workers and employees. Now, what is fair and equitable? Fair and equitable pay means, first let's talk about fair. A worker comes to the factory, stays in the factory and does a shift, full shift, maybe for 8 hours. And after the shift, let's say he also does a bit of overtime, maybe for 2 hours. So a worker has spent 10 hours of his or her time and given it to this company, given it to this factory. He may also do this for 25 days or 26 days in a month, like this. So for all the work that the factory has taken from the worker, it should pay the worker in a fair basis. You may have seen a lot of companies extract a huge amount of work from the workers and they pay very less amount of money back to the workers. It creates a sense of dissatisfaction and it lowers the motivation of the employees and they won't even feel like coming back to the factory. It will not give a good returns to the factory itself, not give a good returns to the company in the long run. So Fayol advocates that if the worker is giving you a great amount of output, reward the worker adequately, give them a fair wage. So that's the first point. Second point is avoidance of disproportionate pay across the organization. Again, when you grow up and when you get into job, you may also see this type of tendency that in many companies, the people at the top receive a disproportionately high wage and people at the bottom, they receive disproportionately low wage. You may see the guys at the top management may have like extreme posh cars, they will have private flights, they will get access to all premium perks, but at the same time, the same factory, the people at the operational level might not even get minimum wage. They won't get the basic perks, they won't even get the safety equipment that they are supposed to be provided with. They will be risking their lives and will be working. So Fayol says that avoid this disproportion. So that's the 7th principle of Fayol. Now let's go to the 8th principle, centralization and decentralization. We talked about the same point in one of our previous lectures. So what is centralization and decentralization? Centralization of power and control and decentralization of power and control. I'll repeat the example. Let's see if you can recollect. In one of the companies that I went for audit in my articleship, this managing director, he was an MD of a small company. It's his own company. For namesake, it was registered as a company and it worked as a company, but in essence, it was like a sole proprietor's establishment because the managing director was everything in that company. He will come to the finance department once or twice a week. The finance manager will accumulate all the checks, whatever the payments that are supposed to be processed. He will give it to the managing director. He will verify each and every invoice for which payment is to be made. And he will finally authorize the checks and he will be the signatory for the check. It doesn't matter if the check is for 1,000 rupees or if the check is for 1 crore rupees. Every check has to go from the managing director only. So that's how that company worked. And also every other aspect that managing director kept under his control. So the chances of frauds taking place inside that company without the MD's knowledge was very less. That's the advantage. But the MD also worked like a typical accounts executive because it's his regular part of job that he has to sit and verify checks. He's the one who is finally processing the payment. But I have also gone to other listed companies, extremely big companies, where there were clear division of work, which means the control has been spread across employees. In the decentralized companies, the MD will do only minimal level of work, he will do only big level of work. For processing vendor payments, say worth rupees 20,000, 25,000 or 30,000, if I have to issue such checks, the MD won't even care about that because he has given a part of that control to the lower level of employees. So a finance executive, an accounts executive, accounts payable assistant manager will process the payment. He will make the signature in the check. So the control has been given. So the power has been decentralized, which means people at the middle management or even at the lower level management can make their own decision. Again, this goes back to the one of the previous principles on authority, which means in decentralized companies, you will see authority being distributed across the organization. In the centralized companies, like the example that I gave you, almost the entire control was with the managing director, which means it's a heavily centralized company. People at the lower level were like mere players. They did not have much authority. They had all responsibilities. They had to fulfill lots of tasks, but they did not have a free hand to do what they want to do. So that's the centralization and decentralization principle. But the takeaway of this principle is, which one is good? Centralized structure is good or decentralized structure is good? My opinion is both have their own pros and cons. It depends on situation to situation. If you own the business and if you have the belief that you can let go of the control and you can trust the people beneath you in the organization, then yes, it is good to decentralize your control, decentralize your business so you can focus on the more important aspects of the business. But again, if the people working under you are not so trustworthy or you are more of a control person, then I will say keep it like a centralized form of organization. And then also there are some industries where only centralized structure will work. For example, things like defense. You cannot spread your authority across a regiment or you cannot make the people take decisions. It is very highly regimented, highly centralized. People at the top will almost have every command or every power to make any decision. So that is principle number 8, centralization and decentralization. Now let's talk about scalar chain, the next principle. I would like you to see this diagram. What Fayol talks about is, in scalar chain, a company will have multiple chains of command. I didn't draw the chains of command too much and want to confuse you. Just for the sake of simplicity, I have just written 2 chains of command, which are marketing and finance. Each is a function and also each is a chain of command, which means if you see the marketing VP, he controls the general manager of marketing, and then GM controls the deputy manager of marketing, and then deputy manager controls the executive of marketing. And then the same way it works for finance department as well. Now what this scalar chain talks about is that, let's say the executive of marketing wants a data from executive of finance. He cannot directly reach executive of finance. He has to submit the request to DM. He will pass it on to GM. He will pass it on to VP. He will pass it on to CMD. CMD is chairman and managing director. So he is at the head of the company. Then CMD will talk that to VP finance. Then they will go to GM. Then it will go to DM. Then it will go to executive. Again, from executive of finance will not directly reply to executive of marketing. He will give the answer to DM, GM, VP, CMD, VP, GM, DM and executive. For each and every communication, it should go like the same way if it is scalar chain. Now imagine how inefficient this is. But this is what Fayol has recommended. In modern day, communication does not work like this. It is not this hierarchical. It will not be this slow. When I used to work, let's say I was an executive in finance department, but if I wanted a data from executive marketing, I can directly drop a single mail to the executive of marketing, and directly the executive marketing will give me the data back. But let's say if I wanted a data from general manager of marketing, then what will happen? I cannot directly reach the general manager of marketing. So what I'll do, I will submit the request to DM finance or GM finance because they are in my department. GM finance will talk to GM marketing, get the reply back, get the data back, and then GM finance will forward it to me. This is how modern day communication works. But anyway, this is pretty much theory only, a scalar chain. something that Fayol has recommended long time back, but in today's modern corporate environment, it doesn't work that way. The 10th principle is order. Fayol recommends that there has to be a place for everything and everything should be in its place. Imagine a factory with neatly stacked stock, neatly stacked items, a godown with everything is in order, everything is properly set in its place. That means when you want to go and search for an item and pick it up, you can go there directly and pick it up with the least amount of effort, with the least amount of time. Now, also imagine a warehouse with lots of clutter, extremely dirty, extremely messy, there is no proper organization, materials are kept in its own place, no particular order to it. Now, how long will it take for you to fetch a material? Now, you imagine which warehouse will give you tension, which warehouse will keep you peaceful. I'll show you an example of how a clean warehouse looks like. See, this is a beautiful, very, very well kept warehouse. This is a dream for auditors because when you go for stock taking, if the materials are stacked like this, if the stock is stacked like this, it makes physical stock taking very, very easy. You can complete everything in a much faster way. I have had very horrible experiences in my career as auditor, both in my articleship and both after qualifying. I have seen a lot of dirty warehouses, messy warehouses where things are not kept in order, and it has given me only headache. What should have taken 2 hours of or 3 hours of work usually will take 2.5 to 3 days because the stocks were not arranged properly. So order is one of the principles that Fayol mentions here. This is not just with respect to warehouse also. It is generally applicable for every other aspect of the company. Even to the extent of a car parking or a two-wheeler parking, there has to be an order to it. Okay, so that's the 10th principle. Let's go to 11th principle, equity. This is pretty similar to remuneration of employees, what we saw here, fair and equitable pay, isn't it? This equity aspect in management is about treating every employee equally, which means there should not be any discrimination based on gender, race, and religion. We might have already come across examples of racism, people being discriminated for their color, for their language, for their background. All those things we would have heard, right? Lots of books, lots of movies have come on this topic. So today it might appear very obvious to us that one should not discriminate based on gender or race or language. But imagine these principles were written in the early part of 19th century. So early 1900s, late 1800s, people were not so matured and people were being discriminated based on their color, religion and everything. So that's the reason why equity is one of the key principles of Fayol. That's the 11th principle. Let's talk about principle number 12, stability of personnel. Again, this is related to this principle of remuneration of employees. What is employee turnover? I have written reduce employee turnover. Employee turnover means that the employees join your company, at the same time they leave your company at a much faster rate. So imagine you filled the team with the 10 people at the beginning of the year, and then those 10 people left, and then a new set of 10 people came, those people left, and by the end of the year you are at the third set of 10 people. Now that means there is a huge amount of employee turnover. If employees keep resigning, you will have to keep recruiting new employees. Retaining an employee is a much cheaper option than letting an employee go and finding a new employee and replacing that employee. We will see this detail in staffing chapter. Recruiting an employee is not an easy job. You have to give announcements, you have to give advertisements, vacancy advertisements. You have to call the people for interviews. You have to interview them. Then you have to evaluate. 2-3 stages of interviews will be there. Then you have to do background checks. So recruiting an employee is not a cost-effective thing. Then how can you maintain the stability of personnel? Which means again you reward them properly, you treat them well. Give them holidays, give them breaks, don't overload them. Maintain the team in an equal way so that there is not just one person who does all the work and all the other people are just kind of freeloading on this star performer. Make sure that everybody contributes so that the so-called star performer is also not so overloaded. So stability of personnel means Treat your employees well so that they like coming back to work here. In Japan, especially in Toyota, they call this commitment culture, which means when a person finishes their education and joins Toyota at the age of say 20 to 23, they make sure that it's one of their life ambitions to work inside Toyota, to work in Toyota till the age of 60 or till whenever they retire. And it is also one of the goals of Toyota that if a person comes into our organization at the age of mid 20s, we will make sure that they stay committed to our company. We treat them well. So until the age of their retirement, let them work with our company. That's why Toyota is one of the most successful companies in this world, majorly because they have one of the least employee turnover ratios across companies. So the next point is initiative. Again, this is another employee management principle, which is workers should be given enough amount of incentive so that they naturally have that enthusiasm to take initiatives in the organization. Imagine a workplace where the worker just comes, does his work, stays there for 7-8 hours for namesake so that he gets wages, and then he goes back. So there is absolutely no life to it, there is no joy to his work. He will just mind his business. In this situation, you cannot get the maximum productivity out of a worker. What is the better way to do is you give him some award, you give him some remuneration beyond his salary. There are companies that give cash award for suggestions given by the employees. What is cash award? So employees will be working on the factory, on the floor. They will be operating a machine. Suddenly an employee will come up with an idea that if we operate this machine in this particular way, we can either consume less electricity, or it will damage the machine in a much lesser way, or we can increase the output by say 25%. Anything is possible, but just that it came from the creativity of that employee because he's already working with the machine for a very long time. Ideas come just like that, isn't it? You work on a particular thing for a quite long time and suddenly you will come up with a new idea, an innovative idea, something will strike you, and then you will feel like, how come I did not think about it? Now let's say one of the employees, one of the workers came up with such an idea and he raises it up to the middle management, to the factory supervisor. Now what happens? The two outcomes are there, isn't it? Let's say the factory supervisor was really happy about this idea and he welcomes it. He announces it even to the top management, and top management has put that on the notice board and gives a congratulatory note to that worker, and also let's say rewards him with 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 rupees. Now imagine the amount of satisfaction or morale boost that this employee gets. He will naturally come brighter to the office from the next day. He will come much earlier to the factory and he will start to seek, okay, I got a good deed last time, I got rewarded very well. Now what are all the things more like this I can do? So he will start to seek more and more solutions. So let's say because of this one employee's suggestion, it is applied to everywhere else in the factory. Now imagine the whole production cost going down by say $2 million or $3 million, or let's say your output even doubled in a matter of 2 months. The consequences are endless, isn't it? The possibilities are endless. Or let's say to the contrary, an employee came up with such a suggestion, he raised it to the factory supervisor. Factory supervisor ridiculed and dismissed his suggestion, and it will obviously kill the spirit of that employee, isn't it? So he will not even raise his voice, he will not even think about coming up with suggestions anymore. So then the innovation will naturally die down in that organization. So that is again the topic of initiative. And last point is esprit de corps. So this esprit de corps, I don't know which language is, some European language, might be Latin or I don't know, I'm not sure. It roughly translates to team spirit in English. So again, companies or organizations should invest on building team spirits. You might have already seen, let's say if your elder brother or sister or your father, mother, if they are working in corporate, they must have already attended in a lot of team building events. So they will book a resort, or they will go on a vacation, or they will go to some seminars, or they will go to some competition. There are lots of ways one can build a team. Employees will gather for a weekend that they will stay together, they'll cook and eat together. So they will do a lot of fun activities. They'll go on a trekking trip, hiking trip. So these type of things beyond work will build the team spirit. So by the time they are done with this team building activity, they would have had all positive emotion, good emotion. One would be able to understand the other employee in an even much better way. And when they come back to the factory, come back to the office, they will start to work in a much more synchronized manner with each other. You can expect a much better coordination between them. So that is this philosophy behind building team spirit. So we are done with Fayol's management principles. The last segment of this topic is comparing Taylor's scientific principles versus Fayol's management principles. Some 2-3 points I would like to mention here. If you see, Taylor completely focused on productivity. Everything about him was about science and measuring everything to the last second and figuring out one best way to do any particular job. He was totally focused on productivity, cost reduction. He also believed in harmony between the workers and the management. He also said that management should take care of the workers and workers should give their best back to the management. But if you see, Taylor's thoughts and Taylor's innovations and productions largely revolved around the factory level, which is the operational level, operational aspect of the management. But if you see Fayol, he was about the top management. All his communications were his advices to the top management, stating how top management should treat the employees. Okay, make sure you give good remuneration, make sure you build the team spirit, make sure you keep the employees taking initiative. So it's all about ordering the top management to take care of the operational management. So that's a broad classification that you want to see between Taylor and Fayol first. And the next thing is, Taylor was a scientist by profession. He was more of a science guy. He will do a lot of trial and error. Fayol is like a theorist. He doesn't practice anything, but he's a theorist. Okay, he says that I have come up with 14 management principles. Everything is in theory, but again, the application of it will depend upon situation to situation. So that's this entire second chapter. I hope you understood the lectures. From our next video, we will talk about third chapter, which is business environment. Please leave in the comment section below how do you like this channel, how are the videos, and if you want to give me some feedback on things that I should improve, let me know in the comment section. I will definitely read them. Thank you and bye-bye.